Welcome back, tyrants and newcomers. I'd like to apologize to Say's attorney. Last episode, the trial started, we got some words from Emma, and we found out Lamiroir isn't as truthful as she appears to be. In this episode, we'll uncover why. Lamiroir! You aren't hiding something from this court, I hope? That sweet song of hers was sounding a little too sweet.
Now I remember. Please, allow me to add my testimony.
Of course. All we want to know is the truth.
She looks kinda pale, huh?
She saw something. I know it. Even the victim said so.
I saw bullet holes in the wall. Knew Mr. Lettuce had been shot.
You saw bullet holes in the wall. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Because check out this diagram. Lamiroir, they call you the siren of the ballad. But lies are hardly becoming of such a creature. I'll put down worthy of our prosecutor, Mr. Justice.
Such put-downs are hardly becoming of you, Apollo.
Stop polishing your forehead and start polishing your character, yeah?
Come on, can't I be cool for once?
No.
Observe the diagram. Lamiroir, you looked in from the door for just a moment, correct?
Yes, that is so.
There were bullet holes in the room, yes? But they were in the wall, the door is on. You see? Assuming you merely glanced into the room, you couldn't have seen those bullet holes. Lamiroir!
Yes.
I'm afraid the defense has raised a good point. It appears you have been holding back something.
And I must tell you. I must tell you what it is that I saw.
Yes. The happenings in this trial are being recorded, and I'm certain it will be on the news in Borginia.
Or on YouTube.
You understand your reputation is at stake. It falls to you to avoid tarnishing it.
Personally speaking, I still believe that cross-examining her will yield us absolutely nothing.
But she knew how Mr. Lettuce died, and he named her as a witness. You must have seen something, Lamiroir. Very well. Lamiroir, please continue your testimony.
Very well. I shall.
What I saw, too.
I was on my way from the stage to the backstage exit. There was something like a little window there. And that's how I saw it. There were 2 shots. I couldn't do anything to stop it. But it wasn't Machi. It was a grown person. I know it was.
So you did witness the crime. And the killer was a grown person, you say?
Ugh. This is my first time hearing this, I assure you. Nice play, Forehead.
Very well. Mr. Justice, you may begin your cross-examination.
Great going, Apollo! You were right about Lamiroir. What's wrong? You don't look too happy.
This whole thing smells fishy. That's what's wrong. What I saw, too. Alright, now, the contradiction in this statement I saw when she was stating it, so I believe this 2 shots is a contradiction of the autopsy, correct? Yes. Either the autopsy wound, the autopsy or the diagram. Okay, it's a diagram. Let's go back then. No? Okay, what about this investigation request? No investigation request. This 2 shots thing has got to be a contradiction. What about this? Can we examine it? Point it at ourselves? Yikes! Don't point that thing at me!
Don't worry, I'm an old hand with firearms. I have one that shoots bullets.
I don't want it shooting any bullets, thank you.
Not those bullets, silly. My gun shoots bullets, the magic cat.
What the freak kind of show are you running, Trucy? A cat comes out of a gun?
I can tell from your expression you've never heard of that trick. It's a great one.
Honestly, that one sounds halfway interesting. Okay, so let's just press it then. You are certain you heard 2 shots fired?
Yes, quite certain. I was on my way to the backstage exit. This was when I heard a faint sound, like a gunshot. Wondering what it had been, I peered through the window. That is when I heard the second gunshot, much closer.
And there were 2 bullet holes at the scene. No contradictions so far.
It all happened on the other side of that window. There was nothing I could do.
Okay, let's press her about the grown person then. Press. A grown person? That's a little vague.
I am sorry. My skill with your language is lacking, I know.
Certainly, you could at least see whether the shooter was male or female.
It was a man. A young man.
And you're sure of that?
Yes, his voice was quite clear.
Voice? Huh. Looking at this diagram, it seems the dressing room was quite cluttered. It does seem likely that you wouldn't have had a clear view of the
As
shooter.
a singer, I rely more on my ears than my eyes. When I hear a voice, I do not forget it. That voice was the voice of a man.
So you heard the voice. But wait. Couldn't that have been the victim, Mr. Letus?
Absolutely not. Did I not just say that I do not forget the voice? If it was Mr. Letus who spoke, I would have known.
Indeed. So you were at the window and you heard the shooter's voice, the voice of a young man.
Apollo, this is a good testimony. That proves it wasn't Machi.
Indeed. If this turns out to be true, it would cast this case in a considerably different light. What is the defense's opinion of this testimony? Unfortunately, I want to say it's contradictory. Though it pains me to say this. There's something about Lamiroir's testimony that rings false.
Bravo, Airforehead. You're colder than I thought.
I'm sure you remember what the problem is as well as I do, Gavin. As has been established, no grown man could pass through that air vent. He couldn't have fled the scene of the crime.
That means Lamiroir has to be lying.
I know, and I know it's bad for our case, but I can't shut my eyes to this. Believe me, the idea was tempting.
It is as Airforehead says. Yet, this is not the only contradiction within her testimony.
What's next? What's he talking about?
Lamiroir, I understand why you would want to protect Machi. Yet remember, you are the siren of the ballad, and lies do not become such a creature.
What does the prosecution mean?
Apollo, what's he talking about?
How come no one bats an eye when he says stuff like that?
Because I'm awesome. I recall the state of the crime scene quite well.
The state of the room?
Yes, and when the murder took place, that window was closed. I find it hard to believe you could hear a voice through it.
What? But I'm sure.
Lamiroir, I have nothing but the highest regard for your musical sense. But my opinion of you as a witness is somewhat lesser.
But she's the only eyewitness we have.
So you say. And the victim named her the siren as the witness.
That's right. That's what Mr. Letus...
We heard your claim. We even entertained the possibility, and it brought us to this. A judge.
Yes?
The prosecution requests that the witness be excused. Please.
I'm afraid I must honor the prosecution's request. There is indeed a question of the witness's credibility. But if Lamiroir can't testify...
Then we don't have a chance of proving Machi's innocence!
This cross-examination is over, Prosecutor Gavin. You may continue making your case.
Danke. Now, where were we? Ah, yes. I would like to hear from Fräulein Detective again.
Wait, let me hear Lamiroir's testimony one last time. But the cross-examination is already over. Until such a time as a need arises, this witness may leave the stand.
I'm sorry I could not be of more assistance.
At last, back to the real trial. Ready, forehead?
Hope I didn't just miss my only chance.
Fräulein Detective, how far had we gotten until we were so rudely interrupted?
Don't ask me.
I dislike saying the same thing twice. And I never repeat a song for an encore.
If you would, Miss Skye.
I believe I was saying that the only way Mr. Latouche's killer could have escaped was through the air vent on the ceiling.
Yes, there was only one door in the room. And a witness, you, was standing in front of it.
That air vent isn't very big, see? Kind of limits the people who could possibly get through.
I certainly would have a difficult time.
You sure would. Not that you would have been there in the first place, though. Remember, the whole backstage area was off limits to people not involved with the concert. The only one who meets the conditions for our killer is the defendant.
A virtuoso performance. I couldn't have put it better myself.
Gee, she's exactly the opposite of Dick Gumshoe. She actually makes good testimony. She does state a clear case. Though, reading the report, something caught my eye.
Oh? What's that?
The circumstances of the defendant's arrest. Circumstances? Again?
Hey, that's right, Apollo! Remember when we found Machi? That was bizarre.
She's right. Why did Mr. Latouche's body disappear from the room? And end up on top of that stage tower? Holding a guitar, no less.
A perceptive observation there, Judge.
Thanks. It was kind of an accident, really. But you work in this job long enough. You get a nose for things.
The judge sure seems pleased with himself.
Yes, the beard is having a joygasm.
Very good, Fräulein Detective. Perhaps you can tie it all together for us. Why was the body moved? And how does that lead us to the killer?
The missing body.
I believe Machi stole the body because of some lyrics. He moved the body to match Lamiroir's song. No one in this country had a motive to kill the victim. And Machi practically left his signature at the scene. All this evidence clearly points to the defendant.
Okay, she said something about a signature. Lamiroir's song?
Yes. The guitar's serenade. You noticed its code too, did you not?
It's code?
All the events that day followed the lyrics to a song. First, the keys my heart held onto so tightly were stolen.
Prosecutor Gavin's guitar burst into flames on stage. Mr. Latouche's life was taken by a bullet.
The rest hardly needs explanation. Guitar, guitar, up together to the sky.
That's mad! It's like a story out of some fairy tale. I admit, I'd forgotten about the song. But there it is now, waiting for me. That grand finale, as it were.
Hey, you know I was the one who first noticed that. Stop taking my
I've heard of
credit.
jumping rope to songs and counting to songs. But killing?
It's a wild world out there, Judge.
Very well. We've heard one song and dance. Let's get on to the next. The cross-examination. I'm not so sure I'm going to be doing much singing. Neither am I. Missing body. Alright, Machi stole the body because of some lyrics. He moved the body to match Lamiroir's song. Nobody in the country had a motive to kill the victim, and Machi practically left his signature. What does that mean? What do you mean by his signature?
The bullet holes in the wall, of course.
The bullet holes?
The revolver was fired twice. One shot missed and left a hole in the wall.
And that means what exactly?
That dressing room isn't exactly spacious. Picture the shooter facing off with the victim in there. They can't have been more than 5 feet apart. It would be difficult, almost impossible to miss at that range.
Difficult to miss, you say?
Very. Assuming the shooter could properly aim.
No, you can't be serious.
Machi, he can't see. That's why he missed.
It's the only explanation that makes sense. He used sound and other senses to fire the gun. Poorly.
That reminds me. The monitor in that room was blaring at the time, yeah? Hardly ideal conditions for tracking by sound.
Blind shooter. No wonder he missed. I knew those bullet holes would come back to haunt me. Think, Justice. What do I do now? Raise an objection. Sure, there were bullet holes left in the wall. But that doesn't prove the shooter couldn't see.
Oh? How so?
Well, there could have been a struggle with the victim. That's certainly possible. And it might have been the revolver's fault. The revolver? The revolver was a very large caliber, correct? If the shooter wasn't used to firing such a large weapon, why, it could dislocate their shoulder. Exactly. The defendant, Machi Tobaye, is, as you can see, tiny. It's not so hard to picture him firing the gun and missing entirely. The kickback alone would throw off his aim. A convincing argument, to be sure. Haha! Take that, smug prosecution!
Apollo?
Huh? What?
That bit about Machi being tiny. And the gun throwing off his aim. Aren't you kind of, admitting that he did it?
No.
It does not matter why he missed. What matters is that the shooter was, without a doubt, the defendant. Even the defense seems to agree on that point.
Cripes, I really put my foot in it this time.
But let's get the facts of the matter on the record. If you would, Fräulein Detective.
Very well. The witness will add this to her testimony.
Right.
Alright, so we have to present something here, so let's see what we can do. From the state of the crime scene, I conclude that the shooter was blind. But he still hit him. Ha-ha! The prosecution holds that the shooter couldn't see.
A scientific conclusion based on a thorough examination of the crime scene, yes.
Apparently not thorough enough. I have a certain piece of evidence that completely overturns your claim.
What?
This is the evidence. The photograph of the crime scene? I don't care much for the smirk on Prosecutor Gavin's face, but this is no time to think twice. Time to press on. Yes, Your Honor, the crime scene. There is something in here that decisively contradicts the prosecution's point.
Then perhaps you'd best show us this something. Get your finger out of the breeze and put it to good use, yeah?
Very well, show us what you're talking about, Mr. Justice. The contradiction at the scene of the crime is... I apologize for stage stating so much, I just don't want to go back. Obviously, the fact that Mr. Latouche was even hit... Look! The contradiction's right there, plain as day. Your finger has a force of weight. Then I'm afraid your argument lacks, Mr. Justice. I see nothing. Okay, so it's not the wound. What about what he wrote? Contradiction is right here.
The smeared bloodstains.
I thought it was just my blurry vision. But it really was blurry. The way the victim's hand is raised above his head. much like a gesture I have seen many times in this court.
It's almost as if he wrote something.
Aha! I get it! At least I think I get it.
Get what, Fräulein?
When Mr. Latouche was shot, he tried to write something. And what would he write but the shooter's name? And what would he write it in but his own blood? Pretty good, huh?
Thanks for making my point for me. Yes, in fact, that's what I think happened here. That does seem to be a distinct possibility.
The victim wrote the killer's name. It's certainly a logical conclusion.
Drat! I just wish it wasn't all rubbed out like that.
That's what she said. Of course it's rubbed out. Why, if I were a killer, I would rub it out all the time. I certainly wouldn't want to leave my own name behind.
Neither would I.
No one has anything else to say? About what? So the prosecution accepts this? You agree this was the victim making an attempt to record the name of the killer? And that the killer tried to rub the name out?
What's your point?
What's my point? Let me ask you this. How did the killer know the victim was writing their name?
Well, Mr. Latouche was writing something in blood. Once the killer saw what it was...
Ooh.
Wait...
Now she gets it. Once she saw what it was? But what did you just testify about the shooter?
I said they were blind. Oh!
Yet the crime scene itself contradicts that. The killer had to have been able to see. Why would they rub out the name in blood otherwise?
Ah!
May I remind the court that the defendant, Machi Tobaye, is blind? He couldn't have been the shooter.
Impossible!
Order! 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 Prosecutor Gavin, please explain to me what all this means. I mean, looking at this photo, it seems quite clear that the shooter could see. Yet up until now...
It seems I owe the court an apology.
You information-keeping mother freaker. Huh?
The governors are banned with law enforcement ties, yet a murder occurred. During our concert, apparently this caused some confusion over jurisdiction. As a result, some reports were not filed in an entirely timely manner.
I'm not sure I like the vibe I'm getting here.
Hey, Apollo, look at him. Why is Prosecutor Gavin all relaxed and smiling like that? Like he knows something we don't, and he's about to tell us!
I've got an idea. Let's rock! With these documents. But before that, I have a question for the Fräulein detective. If I may.
What?
Tell me, why do you think that Machi Tobaye is blind?
Huh?
What did he say?
What are you saying? Of course he's blind.
Of course.
He's a blind pianist, right? So he's... Doesn't Lamiroir lead him around by the hand all the time?
No way!
I have a report here on the defendant, Machi Tobaye. According to this, Machi Tobaye can see perfectly well.
What?
His blindness was merely a publicity ploy by those clever Boginians. He can see quite well.
But you said...
What did I say exactly? Forehead, not once in the course of this trial have I claimed the defendant was blind. The only one who did was Fräulein detective.
But that's...
A significant fact, yes. Consider, Machi Tobaye sees, and he was the only one who could have fled through the air vent. I see no problems with this.
But what about the bullet holes in the wall?
Yes, the bullet holes. I believe our forehead neatly explains those for us. He didn't miss because he couldn't see. It was the kickback from the 45 caliber revolver. A simple accident, in other words.
Ah!
How's that? I'm afraid your objection has just flown off for brighter skies.
Ugh!
This is where the real fun begins, our forehead.
Yeah!
I knew you didn't have what it took.
You jerk! Just what was I here for? Comic relief?
Yeah! Apologize!
Oh, sorry.
That's no way to apologize!
He's angered the Trucy now. Look out. Aha, if we can please end the bickering now.
Whatever. I'm not leaving. I can't leave like this. I'll come up with some clue to solving this case if it kills me.
But your testimony's already given us enough to convict the defendant. Ugh, don't say that.
Ah. Aha.
Aha what?
This blood stain. The criminal tried to wipe it off, right?
That seems to be what happened, yes.
We might be able to find out what was really written here.
Really? You can do that?
That's right. With this. It's called luminol. Maybe you know of it? It's a chemical that reacts to blood.
Ah, yes. Have we done these tests yet?
As if I'm going to tell you.
The blood stains covered this section of the carpet. In order to perform blood tests, that section was removed and submitted. Perhaps we should request it here in court now.
Right. Go for it, Apollo.
Huh? I have to do the test?
You just have to spray the luminol on it. Simple.
A chemical that reacts to blood. I've heard of this somewhere. Yes, I believe an analysis is called for. Have at it. So we shall.
Right. Ready? It's easy as pie. Just touch the screen to spray an area. Here, give it a try.
The eyes of the entire court are focused on me.
Apollo, your hand's shaking.
Let's do this. Oh, snap. What is that? Wow, it really works.
This must be the power of science.
It says IPXX314206. Is that the killer's name?
Huh, maybe it is. If the killer was a robot.
Aha! I have it.
So what is
I
it?
thought those letters IPXX looked familiar. This is an Interpol ID number.
Interpol? You mean the International Police Agency?
Yes. Most are undercover agents working to solve international crimes. But why would he write that number?
Why would Mr. Latouche even know a number like that?
Good show, Fräulein Detective. Rock on.
Huh?
Your Honor, we can verify this number immediately. Daryan, are you there? Come up to the witness stand. Daryan, you heard what we need. Go check into this Interpol ID number.
Sure thing. Give me 30 minutes. No, give me 27.
I'm not sure what to think of all this. The prosecution's case is airtighter, so it seems. Yet if this number is really that of an Interpol agent...
Oh, wait. I know. What if Machi Tobaye is really an undercover Interpol agent?
That would be a possibility.
Possibility, yes. And one that would mark him as the killer for certain. Why did Latouche know an Interpol ID number? That's what I want to know.
Well, we have some time while we await Daryan's report. Let's work on unraveling another mystery, shall we? A curious mystery concerning Machi Tobaye.
What are you talking about?
Fräulein Detective, please accept my apologies. I received word that the defendant could in fact see, just before this trial began. It seemed too much of a bother to tell you.
You had me until the last bit.
Does this not raise a rather straightforward question?
Well, sure. Why did Machi pretend he couldn't see?
Hopefully we can find this out next episode. Rate, comment, subscribe, favorite, and see you on the next epic episode of Apollo Justice, Ace Attorney.